Welcome to the final installment of the winter NEK Tipsy Talk series. Yes, round of applause. Woo!
Thank you.
I know it's really weird being in a bar in the daylight on a Tuesday.
No, it's not.
Some of us are used to it. But I love to see all these faces here. We're going to have a great night tonight. We have two local legends telling us tales that are really important to them. We're going to hear from Kelly of the Simple Memory and other amazing local bands. She's going to tell us about music and how it has helped her manage mental health, among other wonderful things in her life. And the reason we're here tonight is because we try to establish more of a community by storytelling in the Northeast Kingdom. We do a lot of outreach through our jobs, or my job, I do a lot of outreach. I knock on doors, I talk to people. There are fascinating creatures and characters in the Northeast Kingdom. And there are not enough venues or avenues for people to come together and share. After COVID, people seem to be a little spooked and they just hang in their house, and we want to reverse that. We want to kick that trend. We want to get people out of their house, down in local watering holes, down at the bar, down at the restaurants, and engaging with their neighbors and strangers and hearing tales. So this is the last of this year's Tipsy Talks. We may have a few spur up over the summer at some other satellite spots like Parker Pie or the Gap or maybe back at Jasper's. And what we do about Tipsy Talks is we rely on people like you to tell stories. So if you think you have a story to tell, I'm looking at you, Eric, then find me, and we'll get you on the schedule for next year.
Now I am used to standing in front of people and speaking. Well, no, I'm not used to standing in front of people and speaking. I'm used to standing in front of people and singing. And then every now and then, while my brother needs to tune his guitar, I have to randomly chat to fill the space. This was a very impromptu, last-minute filling.
She's a hero.
To be quite honest, do all of you know who Leslie Jordan was? He was a little short guy on Will and Grace. As soon as I read Patrick's message and I said yes, in the words of the late great Leslie Jordan, I said, well, shit. What did I just say yes to? I guess I'll jump right into it. Yes, I've been singing and performing in bands. Oh gosh, I started my first band. Well, didn't start it. They asked me to join 25 years ago or so. My son wasn't born yet. I wasn't married yet. That was my first marriage before my first marriage.
Who's counting?
Yeah, I shouldn't count. Well, I don't have that many here. I'm trying to narrow this down. So I'm going to talk about, I guess I should say the main point is music. Who here loves music? Who here has someone in their family or themselves dealt with some pretty significant mental health issues? It's there. It's part of our lives now, and it's even part of our lives we don't talk about. And I guess I've gotten to the point where I only see benefits in talking about it. So many people that come out to see me sing over the years have no idea of my mental health background. They're not really supposed to, right? Unless I talk about it. I had my first inpatient, full-blown psychiatric inpatient stay 22 years ago, probably. As a child, I grew up in a very, what I thought was a very seemingly happy household. I have an older brother, a younger sister, both my parents. I grew up with a great aunt in the house as well, who loved music. So I had everything. I was singing the Andrews Sisters and listening to Benny Goodman. And my dad was listening to Chet Atkins and the Statler Brothers and Anne Murray, 8 tracks, you know, on Sunday afternoon drives in the family station wagon where we weren't wearing seatbelts and we were sliding across the vinyl. Still made it. That's where I learned to sing harmonies, listening to John Denver.
Yeah.
You know, country roads take me home. I'm like, we'd be riding backwards, sitting in the baby blue Buick station wagon from hell, you know, just bebopping along, looking at and I'm like, oh, they're all singing the same words, but they're not singing all the same notes. And that's where you just sing along. And I would listen and I would learn and soak it up. Now, little did I know, and that I didn't know how to have emotions. I grew up in a house that now we know, and now my dad will say, my mom will say, yes, my dad is a Vietnam veteran Marine Corps badass who had PTSD. But when I was a kid, and you're a Marine, you don't have that. You don't talk about that. You don't deal with that stuff. So I grew up in a house that was very full of music and food on the table, both parents working, going to school, seemingly happy home life. But at the same time, don't get too happy and don't get too sad and don't get mad, because that makes everybody uncomfortable. And so just keep a very calm, fly under the radar kind of presence. And we didn't really know why. I mean, it was just the way it was, and I thought everybody lived that way. But I grew up as a kid, you know, and remember seeing like Bambi and Old Yeller and things like that. And even as a child, I would watch those movies and I couldn't cry. So I would bite the insides of my cheeks to not cry, even though I was sitting in my own family living room, because that just gets uncomfortable. So fast forward until I'm like 18 years old, my brother's getting married to my best friend. You know, I cried in front of other people for, I think, like the first time really, when I was about 18. And my uncle saw it and he pointed it out and they laughed at me. So I said, see, that's the reason you don't cry in front of people. That's the reason you don't show any of this stuff. So I went from knowing how to mask all that stuff anyway, to having that just reaffirm the fact, see, that's why. That's why you don't do that stuff in front of people. Throughout this whole time as a child, by 5th grade, they start the music program at school. I wanted to play saxophone. My mom said, no, it costs too much to rent one, and it's too heavy to carry. And my music teacher said, well, here's the thing. If you play a clarinet first, you can play a saxophone automatically, in theory. If you start with a saxophone, you can't necessarily go to a clarinet and play it well. And it is true. It is true. But I was like, but the clarinet ain't cool. I want to play sax, you know, I want to be like... And, but so I play clarinet. Because I don't ruffle feathers.
Yep.
And I just latched onto it. For me, music instantly was something that made sense. It was something that, I don't care if it was starting out on Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know, when you're all squeaking and squawking and it's like the music show from hell. We were all bad, but then I started to excel. And I finally found something that went along with my people-pleasing tendencies. This is something I can do it well. And I don't actually have to work that hard at it. It just makes sense to me. It's how my brain works. And I love it. So I latched onto it. And music was everything for me. 5th grade, 6th grade. By 7th grade, I was playing at the Johnson State College Community Band. I was already in the high school jazz band. I was playing baritone sax. I was playing tenor sax. I was in the jazz band for the high school. I played stand-up bass, playing out of the fake book, old jazz standards, Lady is a Tramp and Blue Moon and all that on an old stand-up bass. And then he handed me an electric bass one day and I said, what the heck am I going to do with this? Not only do I have to plug it in, I got to play it this way. Go from this way with no frets to this way. It took me 2 weeks to slowly tip and figure that out. He's like, well, it's supposed to be easier. I'm like, no, newsflash. It's not easier for me. But I figured it out, and I played it in the jazz band. I did theater as a child. That was the only time I sang, was doing theater. I did The Sound of Music and The King and I and Fiddler on the Roof at the Hyde Park Opera House. That was the only time I sang, and after that it was just music. After 4th grade it was just band music. Never took chorus in high school, never did any singing except for one time. Much like tonight, my brother thrust me into a talent show where the girl that was supposed to sing the 2-part harmony on either Dust in the Wind or More Than Words, I think it was Dust in the Wind. They'd been practicing. And he goes, so-and-so can't show up. I said, that's too bad for you. He said, you're gonna go sing. I said, no, I'm not. He said, yes, you are. He said, I know you've been listening to me playing. He's like, just sing this. So I did, because I don't ruffle feathers. And that was the first time any of my peers had ever seen me sing, because I literally was the poster child for band geek. I went to band camp. No, I cannot play a flute, for those of you young enough to know what I'm talking about. I can play a flute, but for about 5 minutes maybe, and then I tip over because I hyperventilate. It's a whole different breathing game. I took it home for the summer, and I'm like, I don't feel so good. I can play this if I lay down, though. I was the star clarinet player. I would go to Lake Placid to band camp. I was all-state. I was chosen to go to all New England. I was chosen to actually go to Europe on a trip for our youth wind and choral ensembles. I would have toured Europe, but I didn't go because that wasn't a possibility. So I've had 3 chances to go to Europe and have never been based on music or languages. Pass the music back to the mental health part. So I'm dealing with this whole time. Music is what I latch onto because it makes sense to me. And I feel things. Strangely enough, I feel things when I play music. I was that cool kid that would go home from high school and as I'd play my clarinet for a couple hours because I was that cool when I got home. And then I would listen to the soundtrack of Phantom of the Opera and I would sing along to it as I did my homework.
Me too.
Kindred spirits. So my range used to be much higher. I need to work on that again. However, I would go to school and all my friends would be like, oh, did you hear the new Britney Spears songs? And did you hear the new what Madonna's doing? And I'm like, yeah. No, I was missing entire chunks of what the mainstream, my age group was. And still listening at that point to bits from my brother, bits from my parents, bits from my great aunt. So I still had a broad range of music appreciation. I got married, had a son at almost 23 years old. And after I had my son, I had some major complications carrying my son. So my body went through some major physical changes. Start to finish, I gained 10 pounds only, couldn't keep food down, had morning sickness, morning, noon, and night through the entire pregnancy, with only 2 weeks of not vomiting 3 times a day at least. Once I had my son, who was a healthy, took his own sweet time, 8.7 pound baby boy, dragging an elbow at birth. 28 and a half hours later, he's still stubborn. He gets it from me though. Once I had him, music was still a little bit a part of my life, but not so much anymore. I didn't play instruments. I had been in one band, but I gave it up because I was pregnant, and back then you could still smoke in all the bars. I would play a 10 to 2, pregnant, puking, and then finally I hit a point and I said, I can't do this anymore. After I had my son, back then, okay, so he is now 24 years old. Going to be a daddy of 3 soon. That's a whole different topic. Anyway, I'm a grandmother of almost 3 now. After I had him, because I'd gone through so much physically, the postpartum checkups. Are you doing okay? You doing? Oh no, I'm good. I'm good because I'm supposed to be, right? You don't tell somebody you're not. Mm-hmm. But I really wasn't. And by then I had already developed behaviors to cope with what I couldn't understand my brain was doing at that point. I was a secretive cutter. I would slice between my fingers where nobody could see. I would cut inside my mouth where nobody could see. But I could feel the pain, and because I couldn't differentiate between mental pain and physical pain, but I knew I had a boo-boo. And I think when it comes down to it, when you get to that point of feeling such intense pain, but you don't know how to express it, or tell anybody about it, or you think you're not supposed to, if you walk up to somebody with a broken arm or broken leg, you look at them and say, hey, why don't you sit down for a while and take a break? Obviously you're hurting. You can't do that with a mental illness. It's invisible. And unless you get vulnerable enough and feel free enough to speak with these people that may or may not understand it, they can't see the boo-boo. Sometimes you make your own boo-boo to feel like you can give yourself a break for a minute. But you're still, too, don't want to ruffle any feathers, so you make sure they can't see the boo-boo still, but your brain says, oh, you got a boo-boo, so hey, sit down on the couch for a few minutes. Finally got to the point where that wasn't working either. I had my first inpatient psychiatric stay. So at this point I've been to 3 different facilities. My first inpatient stay was at Central Vermont. I'm not even quite sure how long that was. I know it was more than a month. Yes, I had suicidal ideations, had planned, but wouldn't follow through on it. That first day, it all comes down to who you stay with. And I do still find points of humor in it, because I have to, of some of these inpatient stays. They are both beneficial, and they both leave you with trauma at the same time, and things that you'll carry that you can't drop. They give you skills. They also give you scars, even though they mean to be in a good way. I've stayed with people who, when I had one L-shaped hallway I could walk, you knew you can't look Sally direct in the eye, or she might throw a fist, or she might strip her clothes off and start dancing on the floor. Don't know. You don't know. At certain times of the day, they will unlock the snack cabinet, and that's when you get to have graham crackers and peanut butter with all the plasticware. And I remember my second stay, although on that first day, I did stay with someone who happened to have been a coworker of mine, and I knew he played guitar. And they had a guitar there. But what I mean when I say it depends on where you're at and who you stay with and how bad everybody else on the wing is as to what you can do with music. That first day I was allowed to have a Walkman with my favorite CD, but only one. So I chose Nickel Creek, which is like mandolin and amazing. So that one album over and over for like a month. And my friend, I'm going to call him Ed. I don't know if I'll remember, I just called him Ed. But anyway, Ed, they would let him play guitar. And the nurses found out I could sing. So they would print out lyrics. And we'd go down in the community room. And they'd have Ed and I play music. And for that span of time, you could see everybody got along and nobody was throwing punches or smearing poop on the walls or dancing naked in the hallway. It was such a therapeutic thing for all of us. The next time I went, there was no music. Couldn't have a guitar because it had strings. Couldn't have a Walkman because it had cords. You couldn't have sneakers with laces. When you had therapy art class, there were no scissors. A lot of torn paper edge art, which has its own flair, right? But only when you can differentiate between, or distance yourself from the fact that you have to tear because they won't let you have the sharp things. Because you're in with, oh, George can't handle sharps today, so we're ripping paper. I even had ECT treatments, which is the electroshock therapy treatments. I had tried everything. And you finally get to a point where you just say, okay, what's the next? You're not letting me out of here yet. What's next on the menu? So they said, well, you've maxed out on this drug, you've maxed out on this. Like the list of what I haven't had is shorter than what I have had over the last 20 years. I had 9 ECT treatments. So 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'd go in. I got to the point where I knew the ketamine, the combinations of everything is sometimes before, they wouldn't quite time it right, so before you fell asleep, you'd feel them strapping you all down, arms, legs, full body anticonvulsant, so you don't choke on your tongue, and none of your body can move, but your brain's still awake. Oops, they missed the timing on that. 3 times a week, full anesthesia, where they electrocute one side of your brain to induce a seizure that's supposed to help you be a better person and not be quite so messed up, so you can go home and be a fully functioning adult. So I had 9 of those. And you want to talk about headache. That's the hangover you never have, unless you've had those. That's a whole different level of headache. But I did as many as they told me to so that I could finally say, oh, I feel better now. I think I can go home. I had 9 of those suckers. That was 3 weeks right there. And I was in there a month before they even started those. So that was the second time in, with no music to be had at all. And I came out of it, and I made it maybe 10 days with a follow-up psychiatric appointment for a woman who had seen me once and said, well, I don't agree with any of that. Took me off all of my meds, didn't titrate off, didn't anything. Cold turkeyed off of everything, threw me on lithium, she said, you're not depressed, you're bipolar.
Oh, jeez.
Within 10 days, I ended up in Burlington Hospital. And they said, let me guess, you're bipolar all of a sudden? And she put you on this, 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 and this. And I said, it looks like she has more of a pattern than I do. But I wasn't strong enough to follow through with fighting back on any of it. However, when I went to Burlington, they gave me pencils to draw. They gave me music back. They let me share music with other patients. They separated the violent and the poop slingers from the just can't sleep and depressed. So you could heal. And through all of that, it was music that every time I talked to other patients about music, you'd see their whole demeanor change. And my whole demeanor would change. And that was the light at the end of the tunnel for so many of us, because we didn't know how to have emotions. Didn't know how to be angry, but I can sing that angry song. And I can get some of it out without somebody thinking I'm angry. Or I can listen to the sad song and everybody would normally cry to it, so it makes sense to listen to the sad song. And I started to see how so many of us related to this need for music. I came out of both of those, well, and then I had another one that was only a week. It was like a day camp kind of thing. Well, no, it was 24/7. I had to stay there. I could have left if I wanted to, but that was just a medication change thing. Several years later. Again, I had to come back to it, and I had to come back to music, and at some points it was hard to come back to music without feeling too much. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden I learned, they taught me how to have emotions. And that is quite overwhelming. Completely overwhelming, if you've never known how to have them. So now it's kind of a joke with even my daughter-in-law and my nieces and nephews. They'll joke about me during Christmas time when once the Hallmark Christmas movies comes on, all bets are off.
Yep.
And even my niece will be like, let me guess, you watching Hallmark with a box of Kleenex? Yep. And I will sob, and I will cry, and I will, because I finally can. And through all of that, it's been getting back on stage singing. It has been being more comfortable speaking in front of people. And the thing is I have found that in no way, I mean, I don't just walk the streets talking about all my ick, and from the ECT treatments, I have memory loss. I had to sign a waiver for that fun event. So I have lost entire chunks of when my son was little. I don't remember large parts of that. By the time I got to Burlington, they said, well, you probably didn't even need to have those, but I guess you had them to get out. Yeah. good life experience there. How I retain songs, how I learn songs and retain them now is very different. My processing is a little different. So yes, I am a person of chronic major depression. I have OCD tendencies. I was a late diagnosis ADHD at 32 years old, and I was like, ooh, that sheds a little light on a few of my things. So you combine all these things together, anxiety, the major recurring depression, they are a cyclical thing. And I am my own walking worst enemy many days. And the strange thing was, is this morning, this last month has been a very rough month for me. Music has been phenomenal. I've been part of blues jams. I've sung at Red Square on Church Street. I've sang all over the place, and they have been off the hook. Absolute fun. At the same time, I've been in one of my lowest lows in several years. This morning, I was probably at my lowest low that I've had in a month. I have weekly therapy sessions. She asked me what I was singing this last weekend, and I was happy and describing it. And then I talked about other points of my life, and you could just see the slide. But she didn't let me go back to talking about music. She goes, oh, no, we need to get real. And I said, okay. And as soon as I was done with her, I processed a little bit of it. And then I literally ate until I made myself vomit. Because that's another thing that I do. And ate until I vomited. And then I crawled into bed and said, just go to sleep and start over. Mm-hmm. And I paused my TV apparently instead of shutting it off. And it started blaring in the living room and it woke me up. And when I crawled back into bed, I checked my phone and Patrick had messaged me. And he said, hey. And I read it and I went, oh, hell no. Are my eyes still as puffy as they were when I crawled in? I'm thinking, is that even possible? And then I replied, sure. I'll be there just before 6:30. Because there's got to be a way to find in all this ick. There's got to be a reason I said yes. And there's got to be a way to find some strength in some of these points. And every time I get stage fright, which I still do after 20 some odd years, doesn't matter. Remember, it's like, oh, but you don't look nervous. I'm like, well, you're not supposed to see me. Do you know how well I am at masking my own? You're talking to a professional masker. I can walk into any room and I can be driving to a gig knowing it's going to be a good one, but I am driving there going, I cannot do this. Why did I say I was going to do this? I booked this 8 months ago. What the hell was I thinking? I am too tired. I can't do this. I will lug all the equipment. I will set everything up, and then I go change my clothes. And when I change my clothes, I also have to change me for a little bit. And I walk out of that bathroom door saying, right, time to run this bit. Because I have no choice, really, for the next 3 hours. I'm supposed to be this person that everybody sees. But it's also this person that my whole goal with the music part of it is to make people feel the music as much as I do. That's my job. If I'm singing a feisty song about Goodbye Earl because she's killing his ass, then I get to feel feisty. If I'm singing Shallow, I make her face like, stop. It's a joke between us. I know I've done my job. If you feel that song as much as I do, because that is how I learned to have emotions again and to keep emotions. And even when things hurt, sing your way right out of it. Sing your way through all the ick. So when I am feeling my most ickiest, I am hoping I have a gig that weekend. Because I'm going to go pour out my ick. Mm-hmm. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what music is. And it doesn't matter if you've never heard the song before. You can go hear music if you've never heard, and you see someone on stage and they are in it. And you say, oh, they are in it, right? And part of you gets in it a little bit too with them. And for them, that's their release. And so music through all these years, that has been my release. And it is what has kept me, along with my family, 6 feet above her. Well, about 5'8" with heels, though, so maybe 5'10". So you find those points that you can latch onto, and you find what you're good at. And there are Alzheimer's patients where the daughter will walk in. They have no idea who she is. If she walks in and plays them a Beatles tune, they start singing along because they remember every word. They remember the feeling
Tony Bennett.
that music brings them. That connection to the words, to the melody, to all of it. And there's parts of our brains. You have a Parkinson's patient, you have someone that has a shuffle, a slow, a gait problem where they're walking. And you put on some music, they will be waltzing. The way your brain connects with what music can do for you lets you split between your emotions and between your brain and between your body. It brings you where you need to be for a few minutes. So my whole thing is I really think access for mental health needs to have not only better conditions and more access, but more opportunities for afterwards to encourage people to continually be part of the arts, be part of music. Go see it, go hear it. If you don't know how to play anything, just go hear it. Have things with access for people to emote through music and through art and through people like myself, hopefully, who can explain to them, this is how you do it. Because sometimes that's the only thing you can latch onto. And it can make things better. And you don't have to be good at it. You can just enjoy it and still feel the benefits. I have no idea. I got 5? Okay.
Say it.
Doing great.
That has been my journey in a real nutshell.
Literally.
20 years of therapy, off and on. 3 full hospitalizations. After the Burlington hospitalization, I went into a day program, an outpatient day program called Seneca through Burlington, which is a fabulous program. And usually you're in there for 2 weeks, but I was here for 2 months. Go figure. I was a star student, or maybe not. Maybe not. See, I'm a good student because I just do as I'm told. And I'm a quick learner. The only problem, they wouldn't let me out because I didn't have a standing psychiatry appointment. You have to have one of those. From that, though, they give you your toolbox. They give you your coping skills. They give you all these tools for all these things that you might come up against. But for me, my biggest tool in the toolbox is music. Because it lets you stop feeling like a patient and lets you feel like just anybody else going out anywhere, to a bar, to a show, to a concert. Like you're just like everybody else, because one of the big things about mental health, when you finally say you have an issue and finally have something that you need to work on, you really kind of pin that little sticker on yourself that says, hey, I have a problem, which must be similar to going to like AA. I almost said AAA, that's different. And hey, I have a problem. But if you blend in with a crowd at a concert and soak it up and laugh and cheer and cry, what a therapy session that is. And now, the good part is although I still do have to pay for my therapy, I get paid on the weekends for my brand of therapy. Because I stand in front of sometimes hundreds of people. And I pour out my ick. And when I pour out my ick, they clap. And then they pay me. Go figure. Why did it wait so long to do that? So I do still try to find the humor in it. I've also survived by trying to keep my sense of humor. I know I've got like a minute left. I remember my second stay at the same hospital. I walked in, there was this older gentleman in the kitchen area. And I walked over and they unlocked the snack cabinet. I was Time for graham crackers and peanut butter with plastic knives. And I walked over there, and of course he didn't know I'd already been there. I'm like, I'm old hat. I know this place back, probably work better than you do, old guy. And I walked over to the cupboard and I opened it up, and he goes, hey, you're new here. And I said, yeah. It was my first afternoon there. And he goes, you know, as long as you don't listen to what they tell you out of the back of the cupboard, you can have as many graham crackers as you want. Thanks. I know how this works. I'm a repeat offender. But he was a gentle one, so I knew he was safe. He just had voices. And he was nothing compared to some of the ones I was in there with. There are some funny stories. There are some relatable to anybody kind of stories of my inpatient stays. And some horrible bits that it leaves you with PTSD from having to be in observation rooms where I'm on camera 24/7. Having people hang up on my son on the one call I get a week because she barged through the door and threw a fist at me and then hung up the phone. All different sorts. And also sometimes when you're in there you realize, well, I'm not as crazy as that chick. She's gonna be in here longer than me. She should be on a different floor. So then I didn't quite feel so bad. But when it all comes down to it, music still, till the day I'm in the ground, will be what keeps me above ground as long as it does. I guess that's it. Does anybody have questions?
Favorite song to sing?
Favorite song, just it changes for me. Right now it's one by Teddy Swims,
Oh, yes.
Lose Control. It took me a month to learn it, and I just started doing it at an open mic, and just forced my brother to play it on Saturday. I can't force him too much because he has to know the chord progression. He forces songs on me repeatedly. But that is one of my new favorites. And anything Stevie Nicks, or anything Journey, or Pink. Those are probably my favorites, and that make me feel the most smooth, or the most powerful, or the most. It's all in the feeling, or what calls for the feeling for the moment.
Could you sing a cappella?
I probably could do that if everybody's game.
Oh, yes.
I just need to sit with that.
Or Stevie Nicks.
How about that Teddy Swims song?
Yes.
Sorry the microphone's not that good.
It's okay. I'm loud once I'm singing.
buddy. My microphone.
Oh gosh, let's see.
Nobody's looking.
Nobody's looking. I just gotta find that first note. Something's got a hold of me lately. No, I don't know myself anymore. Feels like the walls are all closing in, and the devil's knocking on my door. Oh, out of my mind, how many times did I tell you I'm no good at being alone? It's taking its toll on me, trying my best to keep from tearing the skin off my bones. Don't you know I lose control when you're not next to me? I'm falling apart right in front of you, can't you see? I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, you're breaking my heart, baby, you made a mess of me. Problematic. Problem is I want your body like a fiend, like a bad habit. Bad habits hard to break when I'm with you. Yeah, I know I can do it on my own, but I want that real full moon, black magic, and it takes two. Problematic. Problem is when I'm with you, I'm an addict, and I need some relief. My skin in your teeth, can't see the forest through the trees. Got me down on my knees, darling, please. Oh, I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, I'm falling apart right in front of you. Can't you see? I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, you're breaking my heart, baby. You made a mess of me. Yeah, I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, I'm falling apart right in front of you. Can't you see? I lose control when you're not next to me. Yeah, you're breaking my heart, baby. You made a mess of me. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me, everybody. Thanks for being part of what I do. And coming out and listening and having fun with me as I pour my gift out on several occasions. And I hope to see more of you soon. Thank you.
Beyond excellent.
Well, that was it! What a great end to the Tipsy Talk series. Thank you so much. She saved my fucking ass. They're not all like roses and daisies, right? You know, like there's some real stuff to talk about, and being vulnerable is a terribly scary thing. So thank you so much.
It is.
But yeah, I hope that empowered somebody in the crowd to come up for next year, because I hate asking for volunteers. I love people who come to me. So we'll see you next winter. Thank you.